Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for coming. This is a start to something that I've been thinking about and working on for a while. Um, through being on TikTok for a couple months now, it's been amazing to see all the messages I've been getting and everyone reaching out. But, it comes like at a certain point, I realized I only have so much advice to give. And, we all come from across the world. I saw some people in here, one of my friends who's has this physics page, he's from Lebanon. So, we really have people from everywhere on this Discord and on the Zoom right now. And I really just wanted to bring in speakers who can give different perspectives and, who are amazing, just like Emily. So I'm really excited that you guys could all come for the first guest speaker, Emily Newman. And she works as a software engineer for NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, which is one of the 10 NASA centers. And she specifically worked in the EDL telemetry visualization for the Mars Perseverance landing, which happened just a little bit ago. And because it's Women's History Month, obviously we wanted to highlight accomplished women in STEM who are paving the way for so many women. And Emily is just an incredible example. And I am so humbled that, she could be here today. So maybe you can give us just like a short description, anything I kind of left out, and just for some of the people who haven't maybe read your bio, just like a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's
Oh,
an
there's
echo
an echo going on.
I don't know who's. Oh, okay. Hello. I'm Emily. Yes, like Jackie said, I work at Jet Propulsion Lab, or JPL for short. I'll probably refer to it a lot as JPL or the lab accidentally throughout this. So yeah, I'm a software engineer there. But I started out as, well, for college, I went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and studied computer science and robotics there. I graduated in 2019, and then I went off to work at JPL pretty much right after I graduated, around August 2019. I've been working on this Mars landing visualization since pretty much since I joined JPL. So we worked on it for about a year and a half, right up until landing, and I'm still doing some stuff for it now, even because we're visualizing everything that happened on landing day. Um, so yeah, that's most of the important things about me. I mean, I also have some hobbies. Most of them involve playing lots of video games with my very nice computer. Um, like I said in my bio, I'm extremely bad at League of Legends, but I play it quite often. And I usually play bot lane if you play League of Legends.
You're working
Um,
on it.
But yeah, so I think Jackie, let me know if I forgot anything in that quick intro, but that's most of it.
No, awesome. So I guess like let's go back in time, kind of, see how you got into this, because an accomplishment like NASA is, something that's just a lot of us can't really comprehend. So I guess how did you get into STEM, and like did you always want a career in STEM growing up?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I should have where I grew up. I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Go Blue! Woo! Still a big Michigan fan. Um, I so yeah, I had in elementary school even. I think that's even where it started for STEM for me. I had a really good teacher, and she was really into letting us kind of do our own things. So I would mess around on my laptop pretty much, the laptop I had available pretty much like all the time in elementary school. And I discovered this program that CMU made actually called Alice, and it's meant to teach middle schoolers and high schoolers basic computer programming stuff. It's kind of like Scratch that MIT made. It's pretty much the same thing. So I had a lot of fun messing around with that when I was a kid, and I did enough research, Googling to figure out that Carnegie Mellon made it, and I was like, "Oh, I want to go to Carnegie Mellon." But then I went through middle school and high school. I took a lot of math and science and computer science even in high school, and it was part of. Uh, I did a couple of competitive programming things, and I was also on the first robotics team in high school, and so I kind of just jumped right into that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I ended up applying to many places, not just CMU, because I like did research and I was no longer a elementary schooler. But then I ended up like deciding CMU is the right place to go, and I got in, and it was fantastic from there. So
Uh-huh. Meant
yeah.
to be there. So I guess, a lot of high schoolers, if there's some on here, but even for college students, it's so difficult and so competitive these days. So obviously you went into computer science, but did you do anything in high school, like outside of, the robotics club or those teams, like during the summer to stay involved, internships or jobs? Like what other extracurriculars did you do?
Yeah, I mean, in high school, I was pretty busy high schooler. Most of my time was taken up by sports because I was on the crew team in high school, so that took up a lot of my time. And I was also in the orchestra, so that all that kind of, and I took all the AP classes I could possibly take. So that was kind of that was kind of what I spent most of my time doing. In the summers, I don't think I did anything or anything really useful, but I do know my friends. My friends are also similarly minded, and they did things like teach at STEM, like
Uh-huh.
computer science camps and stuff. But
Very cool. I guess a question on the high school topic of APs, because you said you took all of them. I know it's a big conversation today, and I know obviously you were in high school a little bit ago, but how important were your AP classes? In college, did you think you really used a lot of that information, or it was more just to kind of, make your application stand out at the point, but in college it really didn't make a difference?
yeah, I mean, honestly, college was nothing like anything I'd ever learned in high school. So I don't think AP classes really prepared me as much, but also I think it also kind of depends on the college. Like CMU is very extremely rigorous, so
Mhm.
um but I think it was worthwhile still. It was like good to have challenge in school. I think that's always a good thing. And they also did teach me some a bunch of good stuff. I mean, like I like took calculus BC or whatever, and that was good. Like math is good to learn. Um but yeah, I think for the most part, I was doing it just to, you know, make my college application look good, you know?
No, that's fair. So I guess as we're still on the topic of growing up, did you have like, a role model growing up or someone, a woman in STEM as a role model growing up maybe?
Gosh, I don't know. I I don't know if I had a particular like a clear role model. I was pretty into Grace Hopper like as a concept because she's one of the first women in computer science. She
Uh-huh.
invented COBOL. She did all these things, and I did like a couple of school reports on her because I thought she was really cool. Um, so yeah, I guess I could say that she was one of my role models. But yeah, I can't think of any others at the time.
Yeah, how was like, I guess maybe in high school, did you have a lot of, teachers around you who kind of were able to guide you or push you into computer science, or was it more just the clubs around you and having your peers like really push you into the field and keep motivating you?
Yeah, I had a couple of really good teachers. I went to public high school, so not every teacher was amazing, but I had I had a couple of really good teachers. My computer science teacher was like super passionate about getting kids into CS.
Uh-huh.
So he was always very encouraging, and he was like, I mean, he like tried to encourage me do more computer science things, and he was really happy for me when I got into CMU. I also had a really good relationship with my physics teacher, who I basically ate lunch in his classroom every single day, junior and senior year. He was also super into NASA like me, so we got along really well,
I
and
see.
it was yeah. So I had a couple of really good teachers that were encouraging.
That's awesome. So I guess let's now jump into college. And obviously you went to an extremely rigorous college. So I guess let's talk a little bit about what was it like as, you know, at a college that's so rigorous in STEM. What was it like being a woman in STEM at, a university like CMU?
Yeah. So CMU, because they're a big name, they try really hard to get women in this into the CS program. So it wasn't always so obvious that, I mean, there was still less. Like, I think my class still ended up being like 33% women, but we were one of the worst ones. I think by the time I graduated, the incoming classes were 40 to 50% women, which is really good compared to like some other programs. But at the same time, you could definitely see it. Like, I was a robotics double major,
Mhm.
and pretty much all of my robotics classes were like 90% men. So that was kind of sad. But and also, like, I mean, sexism is real. We faced a decent amount of discrimination just like by being women at this prestigious university. Ev- the men tend to be like, or people tend to be like, oh well, you're only here because you're like a diversity admit. You're a woman. Like, you're not as you clearly can't be as good as us. And like, that really, it sucks to hear that, but I managed to form pretty early on like a really good cohesive group of women in STEM and also men and other and like non-binary people too. Like, we
Mhm.
formed a really cohesive group of like friends, and we were able to support each other through like basically throughout college and throughout all our super hard classes. And like, being certainly there were bad experiences, but there are also really good ones, and we were able to help each other through all of it. So I was really glad that I had that a really good group of like strong women to like get me through college.
No, that's awesome. And, I think about my college experience a little bit and how, there's a lot, especially in, my physics classes and stuff, there's definitely, big groups of, men kind of taking over. So I guess a lot of your classes were like that, probably all of them. So what communities did you find outside of just your typical classes, to kind of make sure you just still had a good, balanced life during college and, were, doing other things to stay involved, but also having like a good motivated group to kind of keep you on the path you wanted to, you know, go on and, not let anything stop you.
Yeah. So I mean, I formed like that. There was like this group that kind of formed of CS majors that were like really close friends, like a few of us. But also, I was really involved in the club outside of that wasn't really related to CS at all. It was called AB Tech, and we were basically um, we ran sound and lighting for pretty much every event on campus. We're basically a production company that is also a student organization. So I was really that was what I spent most of my time doing outside of homework. I was the leader of it senior year, and I was on the executive boards sophomore and junior year. And so yeah, that group was also really great. I made some extremely good friends through that group, like some of my best friends. And also we also were like so we were like putting on these really huge important events together, like concerts and talent shows and like Greek sing and Bhangra dances and like all these things. And so we were like supporting each other through all that and working hard. And we also each had schoolwork because a lot of them were like computer engineering majors or CS majors or mechanical engineering. So yeah, it was good to have an escape from computer science on occasion, but also like have something else to like dedicate our minds to and work hard on.
Yeah. Um, I guess I have to ask this. What was like your most memorable experience in college? And then at the same time, if you have a story that, maybe was something that you didn't expect to happen, maybe especially, in your male dominated classes, was there ever an experience where you were like, whoa, that's, a little weird or, anything along those lines?
Gosh, oh, I didn't, I don't, I can't even remember. I mean, um, let's see, a standout memory. Yeah, honestly, I can't remember. I feel like a lot of I was relatively a low. Oh, there was a time, now that I think about it, I in sophomore year, I was taking Intro to Computing Systems, and we were working on this really hard project called Malloc, which is like it's kind of infamous. A lot of colleges do it now, but you have to like implement this really low level function, and it's really difficult to debug. So I was struggling with it, and I asked a friend of a friend basically for help, and he was like, okay, like we can work on this together. And so like we are like in my apartment working on it, and he helped me fix the problem. And I was like, okay, great, I'm gonna get like a non-zero grade now. But like over a year and a half later, I like learned that he was shit talking me. Oh, sorry, not bad mouthing me to his like a bunch of people, like his friends. And he actually became, after we were in the class together at the time, but after that he became a TA for that class.
Mhm.
So here was a TA for this class who had helped me when we were in the class together, and he was bad mouthing me to his friends. He was like, oh, this, she's really dumb, she had to like, she like couldn't figure out Malik, like she's so stupid. And I was like, bro, like what is your problem?
Yeah.
So like it was kind of, it was a pretty bad sucky situation. It was like, okay, like I literally, this is a hard project and I am just as smart as you. So like I don't know what your problem is that you have to badmouth me to these random people. Like I don't, and also like he was a TA, like it became his job to help people, and he was like badmouthing them to his friends. It was just terrible.
Yeah. No, I feel like, these stories happen all the time and we just kind of try to brush them off and be like, I guess, what the heck, like whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, well, why do you have to even do it in the first place? And even if you try to speak up, it seems like if you say something, you're just gonna, get talked back to of being like, oh, she's the one who was saying or complaining that I was like talking bad about her. Like, why does she care? Kind of situation.
Yeah. And like I know for a fact that he helped his friends, and like would he have badmouthed them if like if they were women or if they were men? Like I think it was just really astounding. It was,
It's always the question. So I guess on that topic, I have to ask the question. So how do you cope with these situations, whether it's like in college, we see this going on, or, maybe even at work, if you have an example, or just with life in general, how do you see yourself, dealing with these situations? And, you're extremely accomplished, but, that doesn't mean you're still not, treated, maybe sometimes on the same, level.
yeah. Well, thankfully I've had experience that it works so much. JPL is pretty good for me. But it really does come back to like the support network. I think that's super important. Like when this happened, when anything happens, I just go and complain to my little my we call ourselves the girl trash squad, and there's like three of us in a group chat, and I just complain to them about it. I'm like, look at this terrible thing, that this like bad thing that happened to me, and they're like, oh, well, that's, he's super dumb, like that's really ridiculous, you're amazing, etc. And so I think it's important to have like a good group of people who you can trust, who you can talk to about anything that happens. Like forming those connections are just really important for like getting through ev- like a adversary like situations like that.
Yeah. No, I think it's definitely important to have a support group. And, it becomes even more difficult today of like, while we all have this support group, at the same time, how do we kind of bring up the conversation still? Or how do you approach, you know, a man, when this kind of thing happens, um, to, maybe explain it in a nice way or just be like, stop what you're doing. It's like, how do you do it? And, should we even, like, how do you even approach this situation at this point?
Yeah.
So I guess let's jump into NASA because that's something really cool. So maybe give us a little bit of background. How did you get the job at NASA? Maybe what were some of your internships or jobs before NASA? Just a little background.
Yeah. So I should have prefaced by saying that anything I say is like my experience and my views, and I'm definitely not here representing JPL. This is, I'm representing myself only. But but yeah, so I started at JPL the summer after my freshman year of college. I applied during my freshman year for an internship at JPL, and I got an offer um, from my manager. And then yeah, it was pretty it was pretty great actually. I applied in about December, which was relatively late on the computer science timeline. And then in January, he sent me an email and he was like, hey, so I saw your resume. I work at JPL. I've got this project. You know Python would because I just learned it. And he was like, "Are you interested?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm interested, but I'm first gonna go look you up on LinkedIn to make sure this is not a scam." But but then I but he was very real, and so I worked at JPL the summer after my freshman year, and it was a really good experience. And I worked really pretty hard because I think that was my first real like CS job. So my manager was happy with me, and then after that, I went off interned at a couple other places. I interned at well, here's where the CMU benefit comes in. I interned at Google after my sophomore year and Amazon Robotics after my junior year. So when experienced what life was like there at the you know the Big Five or whatever, and then my senior year, well, I always knew I was going to go back to JPL. Like it wasn't even a question. So I emailed my manager and I was like, "Hey, I want to come back. Do you want to give me a job?" And he was like, "You were a good intern, so sure." And um, so yeah, that's how I came back. Um, yeah,
That's awesome. I guess from all your experiences at the first time you worked at JPL or Amazon or Google, were there any like obstacles along the way or times where you were like, I don't know if I want to do this before, or was it all positive? Or while you were in these internships, I guess, like, did you kind of, were you able to get a better idea and were like, oh, I for sure want to go back to JPL? Or, how did those different job experiences kind of shape where you are today?
yeah. I think it was really good to experience the different places, kind of see, like, I mean, I've wanted to work at JPL. Like that was pretty much my dream job going into college. So I was like super stoked that I managed to work there after my freshman year. But I think it was good to like experience the different places, get a lot of experiences. And of course I learned from my friends' experiences too, because they would like I had friends who went to startups and like other companies and stuff like that. So but yeah, I think all of my experiences were relatively good. I can't really say that any of them were bad. But definitely I knew that JPL was doing the coolest stuff by far of any like really wanted like it matters to me what I work on, and I knew that working at JPL I would be so much closer to what I actually wanted to do with my life, which is literally space robotics,
Mhm.
than I ever would be at Google or Amazon. So that was that was kind of my thought process there. But it was good to like get out and explore and kind of, make sure that's what I actually wanted to do with my life. And even though JPL pays me much less than Amazon would have, but it's
Hey, there
totally
you
worth it.
go. Yeah. I guess maybe tell us a little bit about your exact position at NASA right now and how you kind of contributed to the landing with the whole visualization project.
Yeah. So my job title is like software systems architect or something, but I'm basically a software engineer. And so most of my job so far has been software engineering projects. Like the Mars landing EDL visualization, that was about half my time, sometimes more, for the past year and a half. And for that project specifically, I guess I'd say I was the back end engineer. So I mainly worked on the back end. I worked on the telemetry processor. And I also ended up being what Allie would call the DevOps person. So I ran I basically ran all the tests with the test beds because, missions have test beds that kind of emulate what the spacecraft would actually do in certain situations. And so I ran a bunch of tests with our visualization in the test bed to make sure everything worked properly that way. And I was responsible for server setup in all these situations. And so I ended up being on site because I was basically, well, A, I was the backup person because my manager was the one like, panning the camera around during landing, and if his computer died, I was gonna like swoop in there with mine. But I was also there to make sure like if telemetry issues popped up, then I'm one of the first people to notice and care so I could troubleshoot easily when I was on site. And so yeah, that's what I was kind of doing there. I also work on I also work on another visualization for cybersecurity in
Uh,
our cybersecurity group, and I also am now training to be a rover planner for Curiosity, which is the other rover on Mars.
uh,
So that's a pretty awesome job as well. So,
that's awesome. What was it like the day of, like, when it all happened? Kind of what was going through your head? And because,
oh, it was extremely tense. I was messaging like a thousand people because I was like, guys, like turn on the live stream. And I'm like there in the background, you can see me. And like, um, and then, but it was very tense in the room because like, I mean, I've only been here for a year and a half and I've just worked on basically the last step in the pipeline, but
yeah.
other people in the there with me had been working on this for like 7 or possibly some of them 7 or 8 years. Like this was their work and they like the person who like was in charge of the terrain relative navigation system was there. One of the main systems engineers was there and so everybody was super nervous and the landing itself was a little harrowing, I think. So like but everything that was going through my mind, I was just like, "Oh my god, I hope it works. I hope it works." And then the first second we got data, like right when probably on the live stream you saw the visualization change from the cruise visualization, like the NASA eyes one to ours, which had like a bunch of dials and stuff. I was like, "Oh my god, it works. Like that's it. I'm done. Like I know it works. We're good." like
That's amazing. How many
yeah.
people were like in the room at the time?
So there are a lot of people on lab, but
Uh-huh.
because of COVID, it was we were all like had to be super spaced out. We were all wearing N95s, so I think there were probably about 20 people in the room I was in, which was like a really big white conference room. And then there were also like probably around 20 people downstairs in the dark room with the MSA, which is like the room with all the nice blue lighting, the usual mission control room. So
Cool. Um, I guess maybe can you tell us a little bit about like your specific, group that was working on this project? Like how many people were there? How many of you were male versus female, and kind of what were the ages? Were you the youngest?
yeah, so on this visualization project, there were 7 of us, including my manager, and he was pretty involved. I was the only woman and I was definitely the youngest, but the other the other guys in the project, they were relatively young too. I'd say all of them were in their 20s.
Mhm.
And our manager, of course, he's like I don't know, 50, 40. He's a real adult and has worked at JPL for over 20 years. So um he's well along in his career, but yeah, the rest of us were relatively young. So um yeah, it was good working with them. We were a good team.
Yeah. And what is it like being the only female, in your group, or I guess one of the few, maybe within like the company or parts that you do see over the past
Yeah.
year that you've been there?
I'll say it's definitely less noticeable during COVID because most of the time, like us software engineers, we don't like to have our cameras on, so most of our cameras are off during our meetings. Um, but when I first started, I was like, okay, cool. I'm the only woman on like most of my projects at this time, and there aren't many around me, and I'm like walking around the building, and there's some. I mean, there's a few, and they're like definitely present, but there's not many, and it was kind of weird. So I don't know. I felt a little weird at first because I was like, well, they kind of went from CMU, which while still having its own gender ratio issues, like was definitely very favorable to JPL, which is like, wow, it's there's a lot less women here. Um, but after a while, I became used to it almost, which kind of sounds terrible to think about. And there's also the added bonus of so we met with some people from the EDL operations team
Mhm.
every other week, and in that group, there are one of the people in charge there is a woman. Her name's Arissa Hines and or Arissa Stilley actually, and then there is another woman there who is in charge of EDL comms, and her name's Chloe. And like those two are just Arissa was like became one of my role models like so fast because she's like very cool and she's worked on so many missions at JPL and she's had such important roles and then she had this like really important EDL operations role. So it was nice to find role models there, even though in my day-to-day work, it was mostly like men.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's awesome you were able to find people, within the company who are able to, be a role model. I guess you told me a little bit before about how your manager was able to introduce you to a sort of role model. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and maybe what are your opinions on having a male role model versus a female? Do you think it's more important to have one or the other? Both are equally important. And, what's, advice that you would get from, maybe a woman that, a man couldn't give, or just from your
Yeah.
experience of having these mentors?
Yeah, so I managed to talk at least with a bunch of really amazing women at JPL, and they're also smart and they've worked on so many things. But yeah, the mentor I mentioned earlier is that my there is like sort of a semi-official mentoring program, at least when I started, and so but it was mostly chosen by my manager. So my manager was like, "Hey, like I think like here's this woman, Kimmy. She was a CMU postdoc at one time, and now she's a cybersecurity engineer. So she's probably going to be a good fit for you to be your mentor." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And this is like she's like doesn't oversee me professionally at all. This is just like a strictly like advice giving sort of relationship. So um, I've met with her almost nearly every other week for almost a year now, and she's been like amazing. She like basically pushes me to do great things. She's helped me find like interesting work. She's like in reaching out to other people on lab because at JPL it's really a who you know sort of place. And
Mhm.
so it's important to like get those connections, and when you have someone who's mentoring you who's been at the lab for a long time and has all those connections, it's really good. And plus she's been like very encouraging of me and like helps me like with standing up for myself and like kind of almost demanding because she's very strong personality. She
Yeah.
almost like demands that I get like the best of everything, and it's really good to have somebody looking out for you like that. And uh, my manager is awesome. Like his name is Mark, and I think he's great. He's like a fantastic manager, and we have a really good relationship. But I mean, he's also been at JPL for 20 years and doesn't quite understand what it's like to be new and like also a new woman at JPL. So
Yeah.
um it's nice to have both of those mentors, like, in my professional life.
What's like the biggest, or what's the best piece of advice she's given you over the past year that's really resonated with you, or you think is something you would share with someone who kind of wants to follow in a similar path?
Yeah, I think well, one of I don't know, she hasn't really explicitly told it to me, but she's definitely shown me that, like, it's really important to if you wanna work on something cool, like, you should just reach out to that person and talk to them about it, and, like, see whoever's in charge of the cool thing, like, you should talk to them about it, give them your resume, get your name out there, and like make sure they know who you are and that you do good work. So when like the next opportunity comes around, like your name is in their heads. And so she's like set up a bunch of those types of conversations for me. And so it's kind of like inspired me to go out and find those types of like set up those conversations myself, um, because once you talk to one person, they're like, "Oh, I work on this and it's super cool, but like I can also direct you to this, and this person, and they are also doing similar cool things that you would like." So
Yeah.
that whole process is how I even got the rover planner in training job because I talked to someone and she was like, "Okay, you should go talk to these people," and I talked to somebody else and she was like, "I'm gonna give your resume to them and the rover planners," and I was like, "Okay," and then it worked out. So definitely reaching out and not being afraid to like set up meetings with people and talk about what they're doing and like try to get yourself out there. I think she really helped me understand that.
If you were like looking back at yourself in high school, would you have done anything differently, or
Hmm. I would have probably tried to be more involved in my robotics team. I regrettably I wasn't very involved because I was so busy with like I mean crew takes up a lot of time and like homework and stuff, but and it was mostly like my friends were doing it, so I thought it was cool, so I helped in any way I can, but I wasn't really involved in the software for our robot.
Mhm.
And I think if I went back in time, I would definitely want to be more involved in that because I think first, it's not really representative of the real world. I mean, JPL missions literally take like 10 years to develop, but not 6 weeks. But first robotics is really good for kids to like learn about what robotics is and how it can be cool. It's kind of fun that it makes it into a sport. So yeah, I think I would try to be more involved in that.
That's awesome. I guess um, outside of work life, and I know right now it's hard because it's COVID, but what do you do to kind of separate your work life, and how important do you think it is to have like this work life balance and making sure that you dedicate enough time towards like still talking to friends, I don't know, playing League of Legends, like doing other things that, really just take your mind off of whatever's going on in work. Because I know there's so much pressure today to like, obviously be the best, but at the same time, um, I don't know how important it is to like take a break, sometimes and just, know that your body needs to kind of do other things. You can't just do computer science all day.
Yeah, I know. It's really hard, and especially in the pandemic, because I mean, when I switch from work time to like evening, like fun time, it's literally I sit at my desk and I push a couple buttons and switch computers. Like
Yeah.
that's I don't even move. But so I know my friends at least have been struggling with like working pretty much all the time, every single day, even on the weekends, because like what else is there to do? And I'm like, well, I think for me, I just think it's important to just log off at the end of the day, like at 5 or 6 p.m. depends on when I started. Like close my computer. I leave my phone on, but usually nobody texts me or messages me after work hours, so that also kind of helps. But like, but close my computer. I'm done for the day. Like, no more work. I'm just gonna like rest and do fun things, talk to my friends, like anything else. So I think it's important to like once you're done with your workday, like you're done. Close your work computer, put it away. Like that's you need to like rejuvenate and rest your brain and think about things that aren't work. So
Yeah, no, I think that's important, and it's so hard in college, to kind of turn
yeah,
everything off, especially.
yeah. Going from college is a big change because in college it's like your brain's and even in high school to some extent your brain's like on all the time thinking about schoolwork pretty much always, and you always have to do homework and it's always there. But like with a real world job, you just have to remind yourself that like, generally, I mean, maybe in some cases, work culture is a little different, but at least at JPL, it's like nobody is really expecting you to be like working 6, 7, 8 p.m. Like people, especially at JPL, people are older, they have families, they literally cannot be working all the time. So that's there are things to say about JPL, like the fact that either everybody's like relatively old compared to other tech companies, but that part at least is nice. Like people want to spend time with their families, and so like I mean, while I only have a roommate and her dog, but and my in Discord, but like at least it's easy to shut off and like not have to think about work all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
So going off of that, like, and taking a break, did you ever deal with burnout in college and like how did you cope with that or in high school or like even in the past year and a half when you were working on this project?
Gosh, I mean, thankfully at JPL it's been so much more low key. I mean, things were really hectic right up until landing, of course, because that's always how it is. But it's so much more low key than college that I don't think I ever really faced burnout at JPL. At college, different story. Oh, I was so stressed all the time, burned out. I guess I just tried to make the most of my summers and my breaks because like summer internships, they were so much more relaxing compared to college. Like of course I had to work, but at the same time, it was like I could rest after work. It was like a miracle almost. Whereas in college, it's like you have to work basically 24/7. So I guess I made the most of my breaks. I spent a lot of time doing AB Tech things, which is the club that I mentioned. That was always kind of my escape because that also it happened to involve a bunch of manual labor because we had to like physically move speakers and lights all the time to like set things up. So that also helped a lot, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, I think especially now, like mental health is such a big thing that people need to deal with, and especially with the pandemic, it's really important to like take a break, as you said. So
Yeah.
um so I guess what advice would you give to someone in high school or in college who's in STEM, who wants to expand their opportunities or maybe follow in your footsteps and work at NASA one day, or something amazing like that?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I guess I would just give the advice of do good work, do well in school, kids. I guess um let's see. I would try to work on things that you really care about because like if you care about something, you'll do a really good job and it'll show and you can talk about the great work you're doing to whoever's interviewing you, someone at JPL, anything like that. And um yeah, of course, I guess I would just say like do try to focus on doing something that's interesting to you and do your best at it. And like also it helps if it looks good on your resume too, of course. But yeah, I think I would just say that do well in do well in school, try to do things that are interesting, on a more like, I don't know, specific level, like doing this is something I never did, but doing research with people with like professors and stuff always is good in college. And yeah, it's kind of nebulous, but I think if you really love space and you really want to work at NASA, like I think you should do things that on your resume that reflect and like that show up on your resume that reflect that interest and like that matters to people. Like JPL, everybody I know just like adores space. They love our projects. They love like doing what we do. And I think that is helpful.
Yeah, awesome. Um, Jackie, you want to jump back in?
All right, I guess maybe do you want to tell us a little bit about your personal goals in the future? Are you excited? Are there any new projects you're excited for specifically? I know you mentioned a couple things before, but maybe if you want to talk a little bit about that, your future plans.
Yeah. So yeah, the EDL visualization stuff is wrapping up now. So I'm turning currently in the short term, I'm turning my focus to like rover planner training because we basically make the sequences that Curiosity executes on Mars, which is pretty darn cool. Most of it's ends up being measuring rocks from pictures, but that's really cool job, and the training process is really long, like at least 6 months, if not more than that. So I'm trying to spend a lot of brain energy to like do a really good job at that. I think at the long term, my mentor thinks I should get a PhD. I do, I think, want to eventually get a PhD in robotics and move over to the robotics research side of JPL. But, or even just writing software for robots, that would be cool too. So that's kind of my long term goals. And we're doing what we can to help make those happen. I think it's in the meantime, we'll just focus on making those connections and doing well at rover planning because that job doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. Honestly, it's unique, completely unique to JPL. It's like completely unique to driving robots on another planet. So I'm yeah, I just consider myself so lucky to be able to learn how to do that.
That's awesome. I guess I have to now ask you some more general questions because you work at NASA, but you are we need to hear more about the League of Legends. I need to know if you like coffee or tea more because I need to know. So maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, like outside of work.
Yeah. Um, well, I've got an empty French press right here on my desk, but because I drank like 3 cups of tea this morning. But yeah, so I love coffee, but I am too lazy to bother to make it in my own house. So I just ordered a bunch of tea from a tea shop in Ann Arbor that my friends recommended. So I'm now drinking that and it's delicious. League of Legends wise, I'm extremely, extremely bad. I used to play back in high school with my buddies and my and that was back in like 2014, 2013. And now that we're all in a pandemic, we've all started playing it again. So I hop on the Discord almost every day and play League of Legends with them, the people I knew from high school, which is pretty funny how that works out. But I'm like literally like in iron. Like I'm so bad. I play AD carry if anybody knows or cares what that is. And my main is Caitlyn and Jin. But yeah, I also play a lot of Minecraft recently. That's kind of also been our secondary hobby. We're
Oh,
just resuming our high school hobbies at this point.
um, I forgot to ask you a specific question about college, but outside of like your computer science classes, what what other classes did you take that were like, oh my God, I, really enjoy this, whether it was history, English, I don't know, but was there any other classes that you took that, interested you a lot? And also, do you recommend for someone who wants to go into your field, like how important is it to maybe do a minor and, something completely different? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah. So it's a funny thing at CMU we're actually required to do a minor if you're a computer science major. A lot of people end up just doing math, which is kind of cheating. But I so mine was like my double major in robotics, and I mean that was also pretty CS related. So, but I know people do things like minor in music or minor in like CMU has this really cool program called Ideate that basically has a bunch of like maker centered minors. So I know people like to do that. And I think that's really important too, because it's good to like kind of learn other things, have other things to work on other than writing proofs literally all day, every day.
Mhm.
Um, I took, I actually took a couple different classes for like humanities and stuff. I guess the three I'll highlight are um, Harmony One, which is basically Intro to Music Theory. I thought that was really fun. Um, Japanese Language and Culture, which was a English or humanities credit that was pretty enjoyable. Um, and and also not in a weeaboo way. Like it actually taught you about the culture of Japan and like not just like fucking freaking anime. So and then oh, what was the third? Oh, Science and Science Fiction, which
Ooh,
was a science elective that was really just a physics professor like bribed all the deans to allow this class as a science elective when really it was like we watched clips of like Star Trek in class and like wrote papers on them. It was the best class
that's
ever.
so, oh my God.
I absolutely loved it. It was like amazing and there was and he even like he got these bunch of engineers to like write papers on science fiction. It was that class was fantastic, but yeah, I think it was good to take these classes that weren't CS related so that I got like kind of a break. Oh, another good one I took was intro to linguistics basically,
Ooh,
and I loved that. It was so cool and like linguistics is just such a cool like it's like kind of its own science in a way. It technically doesn't fall under STEM, but it's
uh-huh.
absolutely an extremely cool field to study, and I loved learning about IPA and all that stuff. So that was extremely cool.
That's so cool. I think some kids, or at least I was told at one point, like, take all of the science classes you can. But then at one point, once I took like, just a, an art class, or just like I took this like women's history class, I was like, well, this is so cool because I got to see how it related to science in like, a new lens. So
Yeah.
uh, I always think that's interesting. I guess we talked a lot about NASA, but I never asked you what's your favorite thing about working at NASA that like isn't just the work, like maybe the culture there.
Yeah. Um, it's that JPL has an interesting culture because there's a lot of people who've been there for like 20 plus years. And there's also like this cohort of new hires who are coming in and they're being like, well, why don't like not everything's amazing. Why don't we change things? And JPL, some of the old people are like, why would we change things? They've worked for 20 years. So there's like a kind of an interesting dynamic going on right now. And I've met some really cool people who are really passionate about like the culture at JPL and making it welcoming to new hires and fresh out of college people. And um, so yeah, I think overall the culture at JPL is kind of like a you do better if you know people and you have more connections, and it feels it feels a little exclusionary at times, but it's also good to know that things are changing, and the early career hires have all been incredibly like we're all incredibly nice and like friendly to each other because a lot of us have moved out here from wherever and like don't know anybody out here. So um yeah, so I think things are in a good spot and moving to an either better place regarding culture at JPL.
That's awesome. I mean, I guess it's good that you've been able to especially meet other women on different projects, um, like that one you talked about who had a strong personality and was able to guide you a little bit. Because I know it can be hard, especially during a pandemic and when you're stuck in a group, especially with all men. So I guess we hope the culture changes and moving in a certain direction. Um, I know it's 5:57, so maybe I'll ask one more question. So once the pandemic is, over, everything is normal again, what's the first thing you want to do? Maybe it's League of Legends and sitting at your desk, but like more than that, I guess what's something you're really excited to do?
Yeah, no, my friends and I have been talking like for a while about like taking some vacation. Like my couple of my friends went to Hawaii together as part of like a Google sponsored trip right before the pandemic, because that's what you get when you work at Google, I guess. Oh,
Not
couldn't be me.
JPO.
Couldn't be me working for the government. But so we want to do something fun like that, like go to Hawaii together, like take a ridiculous vacation and like drink tropical drinks on the beach and just ridiculous, like almost silly things like that. Like that's what we want to do. So I'm just looking forward to being. I was traveling a lot pre-pandemic to because all of my friends are just everywhere around the country. I have friends in many different places, and so I'm
Oh,
looking forward to getting back in an airplane because I just love. I also love airplanes. Like I'm gonna
yes.
get a pilot's license after the pandemic. Like there's a lot that I want to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Where's your favorite place you've traveled?
Oh gosh. Um. Well, I actually went to Japan right before the pandemic, and oh, that was really great because I Japanese food is my favorite food. So,
Where'd you go
it,
Where'd you go
um,
specifically?
I have a friend who, well, right now he's in the U.S. because pandemic, but he was in Japan studying, doing research there, and so I visited him in Yokohama or near Yokohama outside of Tokyo, and then I did some touristy things like Kyoto and Hiroshima and all that. So,
Well,
um, ate a lot of really fantastic food. It's like the best thing.
we'll
But
have to we'll have to
yeah.
talk after. My cousins are from there, so I got to go a couple years ago, but I loved the food there as well.
Yes.
Well, I guess Ashini, do you have any more questions maybe? Or
I will also
Um,
say that the US has a bunch of fantastic national parks, all of which I love. So there's plenty to do in this country as well.
I don't think I have any more questions. Maybe just one more, like as a closure, because it's Women's History Month. So just talking about women in STEM, what can we do, like as college students or grad students or high school students, to further, I guess, diversify STEM or encourage more women to go into different fields, stuff like that.
Yeah, um I think it really matters to like making a difference with kids who are young. Like I mean, I haven't been the best at doing this, but my I know some people who have like some of my friends who have mentored like first robotics teams or first like the Lego first Lego whatever it's called that division, which is usually pretty young kids. And I think that's like it's important to like show like younger women, especially younger girls especially, that like you can do this and don't let people tell you can't, because you can. And if you want to, then like that's what you should do. Like you should do STEM things. And so um and like yeah, like supporting people is important too. um I try to if people come to me for advice. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Nobody really knows what they're doing, but I try to give them the best advice that I can. And yeah, I think it's just important to do well and like be visible in your position. Like you guys are also both women in STEM, and you're doing great things. And so you should like show people, let people know that like they can do this too. I think that really matters.
I think you bring up a great point, and also like to reiterate what you said a little bit earlier with your mentor, when she said, go out there. If you want to talk to someone, just send them your resume. Like, I think that's invaluable advice, because a lot of us are just, sitting here during a pandemic, especially, just like too scared to send that email, and just like don't want the rejection. But like, as you said today, all you need to do is get your name out there. And as you've clearly shown, just one connection will just kind of, it just keeps snowballing from there. And what you have accomplished, and I'm sure you're going to accomplish so much more with getting your pilot's license and whatever else you do. It's just, I think it's an amazing thing to just see how it only takes one conversation with someone, or one small piece of advice to be like, you can do this, you can do anything you want. So I want to say thank you for coming in and speaking to all of us today. It's been so much fun talking to you.
Yeah, it's important, but confidence matters. It's hard. I mean, it's hard all the time to be confident in your skills and who you are, but like you gotta like trust in yourself and know that you're gonna do great things, and you need to tell everybody else. So
yeah, have that little chat. What's the group chat you have with your
the
friends?
the girl trash squad. Yeah.
I think I need to start one of those, maybe not in the Discord, but I don't know. That's a cool idea. Well, anyway, I just want to say thank you again for everyone for coming. Big thank you for Emily. Thank you to Allie, who is behind the scenes setting everything up. This would not be possible without her. I just want to make that clear. She's a genius, a powerful woman, super cool. And of course, I want to say thank you to Ashini, who is behind everything I do. Every message I send out on TikTok or the Discord, if it was not checked by Ashini, I don't know how good my English would be on a daily basis. And last but not least, thank you again, Emily, for coming. It was so awesome talking to you. I hope you can play a lot of League of Legends tonight, and I hope to hear updates that you're like number 5 or something. Like,
oh God, no, I'm destined to be terrible. But yeah, thank you guys for doing this. It was cool.